All right. Good evening, everyone. We're reconvening into open session. During the closed session, we did rule on item, what was it, 5 point?
5 point.
You can just read it directly.
All right. During closed session, the board approved 5-0 a request for unpaid leave of absence from December 6th, 2023 through May 31st, 2024 for employee number 160191. Thank you very much. Okay. Having said that, I'm going to move on to a motion for approval of the consent agenda. Does any member wish to pull an item?
No, I'd like to motion to approve the consent agenda 6.2 to 6.5.
Second, please.
Second.
Ms. Lopez? Aye. Ms. Ariano?
Aye.
Ms. Turner?
Aye.
Mr. Sandoval?
Aye.
Mr. Patel?
Aye, Captain.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right. Thank you, everyone. A consent agenda has been approved. We're going to move on to 7.1. 7.0 reports, information, and correspondence. First up, we have the Santa Rita Teachers Association. Anyone here on their behalf?
There is no message for the Teachers Association.
Okay. I just want to wish all our teachers in our district happy end of semester 1 and enjoy your break. And please come back reinvigorated and finish up semester 2. It'd be a great year. Having said that, let's move on to 7.2 CSEA Association. Do we have any member here for comments?
There is no comment for CSEA.
All right. Once again, same comment to our CSEA staff. Please enjoy the break. It's been well deserved. Next up, we have the Superintendent's Cabinet 7.1. First up, we have Director of MOT, Victor Sandoval.
Do you have anything to report?
Is Victor available tonight?
Victor and Chuck are both out this evening, as is Dr. Prather Smith, and we have our State of the District report on the agenda, and so the Superintendent's Cabinet are going to hold for their presentation.
All right, thank you. So, all right, so we keep moving forward. Let's Chief Business Officer Rosa Zamudio.
So is that 9.1?
Not yet.
Oh, no, I think they're going to move the whole cabinet
Nothing
to
to
the.
report.
Nothing to report.
Oh, nothing. Okay.
All right, next up we have Director of Technology and Innovation, Krisha.
Nothing to report.
All right, next up Director of Special Education and Student Services.
Not going to report tonight.
All right, and last up, just in case, Becky Moore, Assistant Superintendent.
Thank you. I'll hold my comments for our presentation.
Thank you very much. All right, 7.4 Board and Superintendent comments. So we start on our left with Cindy.
So I just have back to report. Last week I did a training for the cybersecurity through MCOE. It was a really, informative. I'm sure we have everything in place that they said we should have in place, to make sure that we don't get no attacks. It's crazy how easy one click could get us down. So that was very good. And then also yesterday we had our district safety committee, and we happy to announce that we have some grants coming in, some new stuff coming into our district to make sure, the safety of our students and teachers and everybody's well-being is. And so I'm excited about that, and hopefully things go good. So that's about it that I have to report.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. Next up, Ms. Ariano.
Yes, I also attended the cybersecurity training through MCOE via Zoom. Our presenter was Adam, I can't remember his last name, Gavila or something like that. And he's the Chief Technology Officer for MCOE. And he had some really interesting facts. One that stands out is that in 2017, there were some shipping companies, I think it was. There was 300,000 per year cyber attacks. And that was like an eye opener for me. And he just kind of emphasized that each district should have 3 policies in place And I think we have them all, password policy. And he did say that that one is going to be very challenging because teachers are not, even myself, we don't want to change our passwords, but that's the only way that we're going to be safe as far as them attacking. So that's, that was what he said that we would anticipate. The other one was student data privacy agreement, and number 3, acceptable use policy. In the past with the schools, and I remember because when I was a teacher, they would give us, he said that the schools would get attacked or get hacked, cyber attacked because they had an admit code. And the admit code was shared between everybody. So that's why we were very susceptible to getting cyber attacked. What was the other one? The other one was that's the one, the 2-step authentication. And that's the one that we have where Krisha gave us a good presentation. And it just seemed that going through this workshop, she has it all down packed. So, just watching or listening to it all, what I took from it was, like he said, I'm going to quote him. He says, brace yourself for the world will constantly be changing and cyber attacks will continue to be a challenge. So, but the workshop was an hour long, but Cindy asked a question and it was pretty much answered because Krisha had it all down. She explained to us the Wi-Fi and that, we have it. So, you're doing a great job. That's all I could say. December 8th, I attended McKinnon's Christmas program, and this has always been my favorite part of attending these presentations because the kids, they're singing, but they're saying hi and, and their parents are right there and they have these big smiles. And so it's always a joy to see them perform. And then on December 6th, I attended the Zoom of the school climate with Melissa and Summer. And the focus was on data use and peer network. So we were in the spotlight that day. It was an hour and a half, but as always, Summer did a great job at presenting. I mean, she had everything, all the data, everything down. When we broke out into sessions, we had to fill out, Melissa and Summer helped fill out those forms. And it was the quantitative data and the qualitative data. So, I was impressed. The whole team was impressed also. The school climate was impressed with the fact that we really had everything in place. They were very much impressed with the fact that we had vice principals in every school. And that was when I broke out into sessions, that was one of the principals said is like, it's amazing how Santa Rita has vice principals in every school. What I do want to look into is that Kelvin education. Supposedly it's a very powerful tool to use with data and including the children in the data. So I want to know more about that. So, but anyways, that was a great meeting. And like I said, Summer had it all. She was wonderful. She did it all and people were asking her questions and it was a good meeting. And that's it for me.
The one that you mentioned as far as the Kelvin, what's that?
It is a student voice piece, according to how and they didn't go into detail, but they did mention Baxter and Haley
Mhm.
was part of that team.
Yeah, for the Calvin program, that sounded, my group talked about it as like a hub of where you can put the data
Yeah.
and do like the comparative analysis. One of the districts that I was sitting in with, they also, we just did the contract to bring in the thought exchange for the qualitative data in particular. And that's the tool that they use for that. But it also allows to have like a singular like resource hub where people can go in and pull like assessment data, look at attendance, the qualitative feedback about like LCAP, those places too. And as really valuable. We're in a group of like size districts. So that's why like our conversation are like, well, what do you do? And what are you using? And so it was our turn to be in the focus.
Yes,
Yeah.
they call it the fishbowl.
Yeah.
So, but it was really good. And one more thing before we go on, they did say that if the data isn't working, then try to find something else that's going to, be more accommodating to our students. So, that was a good takeaway for me too. If it's not working, how can we make it work?
Mm-hmm.
Use the same data, but how can we make it work? So, but it was good. It was a really good, I really enjoyed it. So, yeah. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Alva. Next up, we have Sarah Turner.
Thank you. I attended our monthly facilities committee meeting, which I always enjoy. There are a lot of projects going on this winter during break, and there are a lot of projects scheduled for the summer. I did appreciate the attendance from all the sites, and I appreciated people bringing forward with the things that they need. I think some things are coming up just from having good attendance at the meeting. Oh, I didn't know that was a problem. Okay, let's talk about how we're going to solve that. So it's been really positive.
Thank you. Jacob?
Thank you. First, I'd like to say thank you for taking on the role. It's kind of nice to have a break.
Not for long.
So I attended the facilities committee meeting, and I appreciate everybody attending their committees because it's good to hear, especially because we can't make it to all of them, is kind of what's going on. So I attended with Sarah. I'm appreciative that the board supported creating a facilities committee because one of the big takeaways that happened recently was it was discovered a couple of years ago, they were supposed to replace the carpet at all the school sites. And it turned out that they hadn't done it for about half of them, or kind of around that number. And that only came about because of the conversations that happened in that space, right? So I think I was very appreciative of that. And then they talked a lot of projects that are kind of coming forward, the shade structures that are going to happen in the winter break, and then a lot of upgrades. I did want to have kind of a future discussion a little bit. I know we have like our master facilities plan. And I know when we first created that, there was a big list of what are priorities, like what are needs, what are wants, and then kind of the different criteria that we're doing. And I know that a lot of times the wants at the kind of the rate that we're going potentially won't happen for 5-10 years or whatever the case is. So I know a lot of times schools fundraise for certain things they're trying to do sooner, whether it's painting the blacktop or whatever the case is. I like to have a conversation where maybe every year we can budget to have some of those wants done as well. Because I think at the rate that it kind of happens, based on our facilities plan and how much funding we get, a lot of those, they improve the quality of the school. But at the same time, based on our trajectory of funding that gets needed, we're never going to get to them really, unless schools fundraise for them. So, Mr. President, we can have that as a future agenda item, where we can have a certain discussion where maybe we can budget, and I'm kind of just brainstorming because a lot of times it could be projects of 10,000 to 20,000 per school site, and then kind of figuring out how we can kind of budget that or kind of set up the process to kind of figure out how we would do that as well. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
I would love to entertain that, with future discussions. Definitely. I think too often needs get taken care of, and the wants don't ever. get taken care of. But I think if we could somehow put in one or two wants along with all the needs, and make it financially feasible, then of course, I can't imagine anyone not supporting it. So let's talk about it and let's put it on a future agenda item. Is that okay with the board? It's informal. Okay.
Yeah. And I was reminded just one other thing, when you first ran for your board you shared with me about getting the what are those things in the front of the school called?
The
marquees.
The marquees, right? And I think that's one of those things that, for example, was not necessarily a need, or it could be argued, it's not a roof, it's not electricity, but sometimes they're important to have. So
I concur. Let's see. For me, I just been really busy with basketball and stuff with my son, but it does give me the rare opportunity to meet with parents, because when I go to an Alvarez game, I go to a North Salinas High game, even an Alisal game or Rancho game, those are our schools that we feed directly into. And so I'm at the games, I'm seeing some torn between who to root for, because, it's like, oh, you're a traitor, but you got to root for them. But having said that, it gives me an opportunity to talk to parents. And, even though they all go on to the different high schools, we talk about Santa Rita. And the one comment I always get, by far more than anyone else, is, why did you choose? What do you think of Santa Rita? They said they love our district because we have smaller schools. They're not caught up in the minutia of the masses, if you will. Our middle schools are roughly 500 to 600, where other middle schools in the area are double that. And people get lost. And I do, no campus is perfect, no district is perfect, but I do believe that is one of our core assets. And time again, it creates a family mentality of support. So I want to make sure I just keep reiterating that is what the public really supports, is maintaining our smaller class sizes, our smaller school settings, and the program offerings. So that's all I can say about that. So having said that, I'm going to move forward with our superintendent, Ms. Alderman.
Thank you. In our data chats, one of the things that my group, I know you mentioned the assistant principals, my group asked how we support student councils, even at our elementary schools. And I was able to talk about how we have them come in and present to our board about coming in and public speaking and leadership and all of those things. So that was really fun. A way to highlight something that we do that apparently is a little more unique than I expected it to be. And another thing that we talked about is sharing data across different groups, right? And so I know you mentioned that we had our safety meeting. We've got a couple of slides that we had shared at our safety meeting, and we let them know they'll be in our State of the District report. I've got the slides from Facilities Committee and our State of the District. I know Victor normally does an item unless we have this, and then he'll just include them there for those projects. But that way people are seeing that this data is going across our groups and across our different conversations. That was one of the things that we talked about in my little breakout session.
Okay, we're going to keep moving forward to public comment. 8.1, non-agenda items. Do we have any comments for the non-agenda items?
There is no public comment.
For either, how about for 8.2, public for the agenda items then?
No public comment.
Oh, lovely. Okay, we're going to move forward to business 9.0. First up, we have 9.1, hearing on adoption of school facility needs analysis and alternative school facilities fees for residential, commercial, and industrial, and exemption from CEQA.
So you will open the public hearing at 6:37.
Okay, I hereby open up the public meeting at 6:37. All right, we'll entertain any comments.
I'd just like to make a comment. When I joined the board with an education background, I thought, I know all these things. And then what I didn't know anything about up to that point was construction. So that's what the past 8 years have been about, is learning how you build schools and about facilities. And because of that 8 years of homework, these things really mean something to me, like the huge depth of information that goes into putting this out. It's just a piece of paper, but there's just this wide huge range of information that goes into producing this. So just gratitude to those people and just appreciation of all the work that goes behind this.
All right. Any further comments?
We have no comments, so we can close at.
All right. I hereby close public comment at 6:37 or so.
Mhm.
Okay. We can move forward with
Probably
9.
6:38,
To
right?
adopt for 9.2.
You opened at 6:37?
Yeah.
Probably good to close 6:38 maybe.
6:38.
Okay.
We're on 9.2, right?
Yes, adoption of that.
All right, we're going to move forward to the second item related to that, and that is 9.2, the official adoption of said need analysis and facility fees for residential, commercial, and industrial and exemption form from CEQA.
I motion to approve.
Second.
Ms. Lopez?
Aye.
Ms. Ariano?
Aye.
Ms. Turner?
Aye.
Mr. Sandoval?
Aye.
Mr. Patel?
Aye, Kevin.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay. I would like to open the meeting for 9.3, correct? And that is for hearing on the adoption of school facility needs analysis and justification study and exemption of CEQA. Open them comment at 6:38. Any comments from board members?
I think just for myself, I think when people talk about facilities, it's not just the classrooms, but it's also everything else that kind of comes with it. Family resource centers, student health check-in centers. So I think when a lot of these analyses are done, it's important to understand also the needs of whatever school district is. So.
Yeah, I along with Sarah, I in a little bit, I thought I knew about construction and finance, and little did I know that when it comes to governmental affairs and school construction, how to pay for them, everything goes out the window because there are set standards and set rules and set requirements. So having said that, I was very pleased with the in-depth analysis that was done for our districts. I want to thank the study providers for creating this study. What else can I say? That's about it for me. Any public comment?
None.
Okay, hereby close public comment at 6:39. All right, we're going to move forward with 9.4, adoption of hearing on adoption of school facilities analysis and justification study and exemption of CEQA. Any comments?
I motion to approve.
All right, I have a motion on the floor. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, Sarah, thank you.
Ms. Lopez?
Aye.
Ms. Ariano?
Aye.
Ms. Turner?
Aye.
Mr. Sandoval?
Aye.
Mr. Patel?
Aye, Captain.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right. Next up, we have 9.5, which is approval of the first interim budget report for 23-24 school year. I believe we have a presentation.
Yes, and that's my item. If we can project it, and you should have a copy of the PowerPoint with you.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. So we can go to the first slide. Thank you. Okay, so just to start, this is the first interim report. This is to capture all the changes that happened between the July 1st budget all the way through October 31st with actuals. And I work on the budget during the month of November. So this is the most up-to-date information. Just a reminder that the budget is a living item, is moving constantly as we receive more information from the state, as we receive more information from the county, and it's going to be continued to be adjusted as we move forward. Based on on this slide, I pretty much have all the highlights for this presentation, something to keep in mind as we go over each fund. And something to keep in mind is that based on the last information that we received, it was advised to the districts to budget for a 0% COLA. When we were doing the July 1st budget, we were budgeting at 3% COLA. So this is based on newest information. I also have some articles for you to read talking about the COLA projection for the next school year, 2024-25. And also talking about how taxes revenue were down about $28 billion. So all of that affects revenue for our schools. As you know, California gets funded on Taxes, mainly sales taxes, income taxes, and corporation taxes. So we need to keep an eye on all the information that's coming up to give us better guidance on how we're going to budget for next year. Also, something to keep in mind is that we're still using the waiver of getting funded on the prior 3-year average. And the last 3 years that we're going to be using on the next school year is the COVID years. So we're getting off the regular years that we had for pre-COVID. And that makes a huge impact because that's when our ADA drops significantly. So that means that our ADA, it's going to be lower, even though that we're using the 3-year average. I know it's kind of confusing, but I hope that makes sense. Also, a lot of one-time funds are ending this year, especially our ESER 2 and ESER 3 funds, which were our biggest grants that we received for one-time funds. So you're going to see those changes on the multi-year projection as well. Increases on special ed costs. As you can see, we have new positions added and new services as well. So that's happening statewide, and we're keeping an eye on those expenses as well to make sure that we budget correctly. As you know, there were new positions added since the May projection, the July 1st budget. So all of that is included now. Also, something that is affecting the district, not only our district, but all districts in California, it's inflation and the increase of prices over the year. As you know, everything is going up, gas is going up, maintenance for transportation is going up, utilities are going up. And with that, and also with the new grants that we have, there's a lot of compliance, and that has increased significantly as well. All of the one-time funds that we have here, we have to do monthly reports, quarterly reports back to the state federal reporting. So there's a lot of compliance. Sometimes we have to write letters of explanation. There's also coming up the LCAP new compliance as well, which is going to be totally new this year that we're going to be working on. So a lot of workload, a lot of compliance, a lot of changes going on. Right, so we can go to the next slide. This is just a graph that I just want you to see. I know that we're presenting on current year, but I really want us to focus as well on the next year, because anything that happens on this year is obviously going to be affecting next year, and next year is so around the corner. I remember in the past budget reports, we talk about the ADA cliff, and the people say, don't say that, it's not going to happen. We're getting closer, as you can see, and this is pretty much the decrease in revenue is mainly due to that 0% COLA. We're going to get a new information in January. So we're going to get more new numbers. We're going to be updating that, but based of the newest information that we have, this is how the budget is looking right now. It is a decrease of $1.7 million for the next year. So something that we keeping an eye on, and we're updating as we go. We can go to the next slide. Okay, so that's our general fund, and this is where most of our expenses happened. So I'm going to talk about the differences of my last budget again on the most significant. So we're looking at the LCFF funding. We changed our ADA to enrollment ratio. Since now we close the books, we have exact 88 of last year. We're using that. So last year we were at 92%. We're using that 92% again this year. It is too early to have a 88 to enrollment right now because we're only half of the year. And if we use the first months, it's usually higher. As you know, in December, January, kids or families tend to go away on vacation. So that's where we have our students missing days. So we usually use the most updated information. And as you know, prior years we had COVID. So those 88 to enrollment were low, way lower. So we have an increase on LCFI funding as well as federal funding increase, mainly due to our ESER funds that are expiring this year. So we're trying to spend all of those this year. We have until September of next year. However, we're trying our best to spend all of the funds as soon as possible. Also for state income is also we see an increase mainly due to a new grant that we received for arts and music for about $500,000. And we also got the CalShape grant that we talk about in our facility meetings. That's for $590,000. There is a district match contribution for $37,000, which is not a lot. And we're using one of the one-time funds to pay for that contribution as well. We also had an increase on SELPA funds for mental health as well that we're going to be utilizing for about $182,000, and also the California Pre-Kinder for $152,000. So overall, $2.8 million. Again, now that we have our positions in place and we're getting new projections for salaries and benefits, you're going to see a savings. So even though we added new position this year, we have a reduction because we have vacancies for SPED that we were not able to fill. So what we did is we moved that budget to our contract services. So even though we hired special ed positions, overall, we had about $1.2 million of expenses that we moved to contract services. So if you see on the line where it says other services, we have an increase of $1.9 million. So $1.2 million is due to SPED. And again, those are kind of like savings or amounts that we have budgeted under salaries and benefits. The line for benefits looks more savings because those positions also had budgeted health benefits and besides taxes. So that's why it looks a little bit bigger. For books and supplies, we do have expenses for one-time funds that we have budgeted for. And most of those expenses are, I have my notes here. So those are pretty much coming for those one-time funds that are restricted. We still have some funds for cleaning, disinfecting materials and supplies for about $100,000. We also have a new equipment estimated quote that we have for ViewSonic TV equipment. We're also using one-time funds for that. We talk about the SPED services. We have the gutter replacement as well for $500,000. It is a one-time expense. And we also have E-rate for IT, which is $100,000. That's a grant that we receive, and that's the district match that we have to spend. On the capital outlay, we have about $500,000 increase. That's mainly due to the 2 buses that we're purchasing for SPED services. It's about $400K, and we're also adding the fencing for Santa Rita as well, carpet replacement as well that we talk about. The last line, about $300,000, it's basically due to our increase on build back. That's a projection that we get from Monterey County Office of Education for the students for special needs that we have with the county. So all of the projections that we have for our revenue and the build back, all of those numbers and all of the numbers that we have here, we always use our state apportionment letters before we can put it in the budget. So this is the most up to date with the new allocations that we got as of November. And as we get revised allocations, because it always happens that the state comes out with a revised allocation, they will go ahead and update for our next budget. Okay, so we can move to the next slide. So overall, if you look at the multi-year form that is part of the first interim report, we're looking at 1.9 deficit spend for this year. Again, part of that has to do with one-time funds. And if we look at the 2 years out, we're also decreasing expenses and revenue for the one-time funds that we're not going to have anymore. But as well, we have increases on salaries and benefits. As you know, we have step-in column and other services that are going up. So we're making those adjustments. If we go to the next slide.
Can we stop there for a second?
Yes.
Couple of questions. On the 24-25 revenue projections, you mentioned earlier that the state is shifting to looking at our COVID years only, ADA. And so when you made projections on that, was there a huge decrease? Was it like 5%, 10% in terms of ADA that you're looking at?
Yeah, so when it comes to revenue, is $1.7 million. When we're looking at the percentage, is about for next year, even though the state says we're giving you 0%, remember that because of every district, well, not every district, but 80% of the districts in California are in decreased enrollment. For us, a 0% COLA means a negative COLA. So we're looking at a negative 3.8 COLA for the district.
Okay.
Thank you for asking that question.
And in 25, 26, you continued a downward trend. Is that you projecting downward trend in ADA?
Yes. So for 25, 26, we're, so for example, this year we lost about 43 students. So we're making a projection that if we have if we have about 43 students less the next 2 years, because that's the latest information. When we had the COVID years, we lost over 100 students. So hoping not to lose more than that. The last year, the third year, we're looking at more. I think there's only like about $6,000 difference, not a lot, because COLA is about 3%. So that a 3% COLA give us almost like for us, it would be like a 0% COLA. So it's kind of like staying the same for the revenue, for the LCFF revenue in particular. We are decreasing the one-time funds.
Thank you.
And part of that depends also, I mean, if there's no more one-time funds that get given in the future, or like if we do like they're having you project a 0 COLA, but if you end up doing a 5% COLA, because I have been kind of working on a chart, and I showed Melissa that we have been projecting ending with a negative, but it ends up not being that way because something changes along the way.
Yes.
So
I concur. I know for the last 10 years, I've always been projecting, a downtrend. But I would say this, I think we've been very fortunate. But given past historical data, fortunate won't stay forever.
Yeah.
And so I do agree with you. I think the projections were very conservative, and that has benefited us to a certain extent, but it also leaves money on the table that we could have spent. So I
will say that what I'm hearing from the state now is the worst that I've heard in 10 years.
Yeah.
In terms of where they think funding's going.
Yeah. I was just reading about that today. They're looking at 68 billion, and even with the reserves, we might be able to pull out next year, with minimal, but there's no guarantees on the second or third year out. So that's what I'm really worried about.
That's what I'm hearing as well, that they're going to try to hold harmless, if you will, for next year, but they can't do that indefinitely because that fund is, has limited amount of money.
Yeah. And I also was kind of reading because it's interesting because the reason they're that short is because the projection initially was off, which makes me think it could be a reverse in the same direction.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because they did mention how when it came back to the first Great Recession, there was the budget, the state had like no reserves whatsoever, which was a big reason. Whereas now they do have a bunch of reserves to kind of work through it and stuff. So.
Yeah. And they also let people defer paying their taxes, which is one of the and then they projected a rate of tax return that did not end up being the case. So we'll see if they continue to do the deferrals or not. If they don't continue to do the deferrals, at least we'll have more timely information than we have right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just so
that's great.
And this is how everybody just kind of works like it could go this way, it could go that way. And then
yes, that's totally correct and accurate. So the state was projecting to receive more revenue. As you know, they give an extension for the taxes, and then they give another extension. So they thought they were going to collect the money. I believe it was in November, the last deadline, but then they extended it. So now that they're receiving the money, they're realizing that they're about $28 billion short. So obviously it's so different to what they projected at the July 1st adopted budget. And as we move forward, if they receive more money because maybe taxpayers are late, then they're going to be updating their numbers as well. So we need to keep an eye on every article that comes out and make sure that we're reading everything. I'll be sharing that with you as well. And I feel like this year, more than any other year, is so important that we really look at the difference, right, between the unrestricted funding and the restricted funding, because the restricted funding, most of it is the one-time funds that are ending, but our unrestricted funding, 80% of that, it's LCFF revenue. And we're still total unrestricted fund, we're still paying about 82% on salaries and benefits. So most of our expenses from unrestricted are going to salaries and benefits, and most of our funding on the unrestricted comes from the LCFF, which is what we depend on. So if we go to the next slide, I did this extra slide that I usually don't do, but this is just looking at the unrestricted, because like I said, those one-time funds, they're going to be ending. We're using it for one-time expenses. But right here, we're really looking at the unrestricted funding. And as you can see on the next year out, so this year we're looking at deficit, but we have one-time expenditures that we're not going to have next year. So we're also reducing that. But looking at next year, we're looking at the negative, for our district, the negative 3.8% COLA. This is how our district would end up. And I'm saying taking into account stepping column and benefit increases and reducing anything of the one-time expense that we have this year. As you can see for the current year, the next year, we're going to be able to we have a board policy for that 17% reserve. However, on the third year, we only can do 15% reserve as of today. And as we get more information, we're going to keep updating. So we can go to the next slide. So this is just a summary of what's or ending fund balance or unrestricted ending fund balance. Everything else that you see in the ending fund balance that is not this amount, it's totally restricted for this one-time funds. And those are restricted. We cannot assign it or commit it to anything else. So as you can see, we have our 17% reserves. We have about $1 million going into any of those one-time expenditures that we need to keep going for the next years. We have benefit increases as well. We have to set aside our LCAP ending fund balance and compensated absences, as well as increases for special ed or revolving cash, and then anything for operating expenditures that is affected because of inflation and just cost keeps going up. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so this is our Fund 8, or fund where our sites are doing their fundraising. And this year we move software. So this year we move all of our funds to Scape, which is great because now the school sites can run reports, they can see their balance and see their expenditures, do budget transfers and all of that. Before, we used to have it on QuickBooks, which is usually how all the districts have it. I was really excited for this, that they're able to actually run a report anytime they like and see their balances. So we can go to the next slide. This is our preschool fund. And the big difference here is that their total revenue increase based on the city contract. And as you can see, back in May, we still had some positions that were linked to our system because we had some positions that we were still paying, but then MCOE would pay for those. And now every MCOE is just taking over things. So we only have contract services for the same amount that they're getting the money from. So we can go to the next slide. This is our cafeteria fund. Overall, slightly changes, a little bit more revenue. They do have one-time funds as well for kitchen equipment as well. So that's where you see their ending fund balance. That's where they have some of those one-time funds that they have been utilizing slowly as we move forward. Nothing major, just changes on salaries and benefits due to new step and column and having actual people there that we can use for our projections for this year. So we can go to the next slide. This is our Fund 14. This is where we paying our Santa Rita restroom. We're also paying part of it out of Fund 21, the bond fund. But this is pretty much back in May, we thought we were going to finish that during the summer. So when I projected there, we didn't have any expenses, but then coming back, it wasn't finalized. It was, so we put it back into the budget. So that's why there's a difference there. We can go to the next one. This is our bond fund. And this is where we paying, again, part of the Santa Rita restroom. We're paying the shade structures for McKinnon, New Republic, Also, classroom additions budgeted for GV and construction for locker room for John Gutierrez and the preliminary work, addition classrooms for La Jolla, and that's pretty much it. Fund 2025, this is pretty much where we collect our developer fees, something that were just previously approved. So this is where the increase, if there's any construction around the area, this is where the money is gonna go to. So we'll see how that affects the revenue going forward. And question, no, okay. For Fund 35, this is the money that we set aside for the land purchase. We had added a little bit more of expenses due to all their fees associated with the land purchase as well, and additional planning fees. So we're planning to spend all of the funds this year. Okay, and that's pretty much it.
I had a question on that one. That's what we're going to spend for the land, and then we also request funds from the state for reimbursement. Person.
You want me to answer?
Yes, please.
We already received the original years ago when we had put in to purchase the land a dollar amount. This is meeting the current appraisal range. So knowing that we would need to get that appraisal, get in process, we can then apply to the state for the difference between the amount we had already received, which is approximately 3.6 million. And but that includes also the set aside within that for site design and the original purchase, when I want to say it was appraising at under 3 million, at around 2.5, but we weren't able to purchase at that time. So now it's appraising higher, and Rosa put that aside, earmarked for making up that difference, knowing that once we do that purchase, we can then apply for the difference.
So we received 3.6 million, you said already?
Yes.
And then we're just, okay.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Thank you, Melissa. Sure. And those are all the forms that you see on this packet that was on the board packet. Just summary of everything that I just presented to you today. No technical errors in the TRC. Everything is balanced as of today.
So just a quick comment. Could you go back 2 slides? Was it Fund 25? Is that developer fees that have local construction?
Yes, that's correct.
Well, I just want to personally thank all those home builders, all those people who make additions. Thank you for supporting our school district, and thank you for paying the mandated builder developer fees without any distraction or commotion, doing your part to build schools and creating a healthy community. I just want to say thank you, and thank you.
You're welcome. I built one.
And I have one of the builders right here.
Nice. I actually have a bunch of questions and comments when you guys are ready. Okay. You guys know that I'm not usually gloom and doom about financial things, but I am absolutely solidly gloom and doom right now. So I have just questions and suggestions. As part of the LCAP process, I think that we need to go to every site and have really serious meetings with the staff, having a meeting, sending out surveys. What do we need to cut? What are we paying for that's not working? What are positions that are not working? What are programs that are not working? What is everything that because it needs to go? Or even harder questions, what do we prefer over one thing or the other? Like if there's a choice, where do we want to go? Because I think we're going to be okay next year. I have real concerns going forward after that. So that's my, in terms of like cutting, in terms of bringing revenue into the district, because basically to us, revenue is kids. I know we got a big TKK enrollment this year. I'm delighted. How can we push as soon as possible to get those children registered March, April, so we can start, planning for the fall, doing this as proactively as possible, being able to get our teachers hired proactively. Just as you guys know, a lot of our costs are finite regardless of the number of children that we have. So more kids makes it much more financially feasible to run the district. So looking at TK and K, I also think it would be worthwhile to look at the transfers out that we're approving at this point, going through the list of those people, putting brochures together for them. These are our after school programs. These are our sports programs. These are our schools. This is the transportation that's available. Just making sure that those people are making informed decisions, and reaching out to them now, getting information to them, just in terms of, I would love to keep, some of our people at home who may be making decisions with really inaccurate or old information. And then the last piece of that is just, where do we have space? In other words, like, if we've been talking about, like, I would love to have this glut of people staying here and these TKs and Ks, but also planning out beforehand, like, where are we going to house these people? Just like, I would love to have 300 new kids show up, but do we have a contingency for if we stopped losing the 40 that we were losing, but ended up being, plus the first probably 5 years that I was in the district, we were picking up 40 to 70 children a year for about 6 years in a row. But there's a lot of amazing programs in the district. We've added a lot of staff that are doing amazing things, but some of it, just even losing 40 kids a year, some of it may not be sustainable. So even things that we've done, like having a counselor per school rather than across two, there may be things that we can't do that and lose 40 kids a year.
So I kind of have go ahead. You want to go first?
No. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I kind of have a little bit different version. I don't think we're to the point yet where we have to necessarily cut programs of service. I think that's still kind of early on. I think the same way that the state kind of misprojected, it also could misproject in the other direction as well. And I think also we're losing 40 kids, but if you look at the birth rates, there might be a turn as well, especially within the last year. If you look at Monterey County birth rates, 2022 had higher than 2021. As far as what it had. So I think we're still kind of early on for me to want to make a decision as a board member to really look at cutting anything. I think we're still kind of, that's my perspective. So,
just for sharing perspectives.
Yeah.
I want to say that this district, especially over the last 6-7 years, we have been, even, with our business department here, we've been very conservative, and that has been a directive, from the board. And that has been, be conservative, prepare for the worst, be conservative in your assumptions, and so far that has carried us well up and down, despite the projections from the state up and down. But I do share this concern, and that is, we really need to look at our revenue generators, whether it's making sure the numbers leaving are decreased as well as increasing, and letting the public know what we have to offer. I think if more of Salinas knew what we have to offer, I think more people would make the choice to come to Santa Rita. And so I think we need to do a little bit more effective job on holding what we have and gaining new revenue sources. And as far as expenses, I hope that we continue the conservative nature of our projections, conservative nature of our contracts with our employees, and honoring our commitments. I think I've said this to the board many times. I would rather create contracts where even during down years we can sustain them, rather than overly promising and creating a situation where we have to take back later on. And this district in the last almost 2 decades has consistently tried to stay there, at least for 10 years or so. So I want to continue that trend. Whatever promises we make, we have to keep, so we have to be staying on the conservative nature. So I hope the board, goes along with that. And we really need to look at expenses. We do, I'm not sure if we're ready to cut yet, However, I think with the conservative nature and with not knowing what's going to happen with our state budgets, we have to go in there with that mentality of, hey, we have to prepare for the worst and hope for the best, And in this case, I think we've done this. So, and I do share Sarah's concern. that the projections that the state are coming is crazy. I've never heard $68 billion. My God, that's the entire GDP of some countries. And but having said that, this state quickly rebounds as well. So I think we should maintain this conservative nature, and and we really need to look at those revenue drivers.
Something to keep in mind as well, they talk a lot about as well is housing affordability. A lot of families are moving out of California because they can't afford housing. And overall, like I mentioned, statewide, 80% of the districts are still on decline enrollment. And one of the main reasons why is because families are moving out because of how expensive it is to live here. Just something to keep in mind.
Yeah. Has our population changed? I know California has decreased, but I wonder if Monterey County or Salinas area.
I don't think Monterey County has.
Yeah.
If
I can pull that data for our next meeting. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that's part of what I've been kind of looking at is trying to see how much new housing, how much more students, like what
Well,
birth rates are.
After 2008, in the down years, they're absolutely the move what among the population with school age children was from the coastal areas towards the Central Valley, because we felt it more on the coast in terms of what happened with the housing markets here and people losing their equity in their house. Then it started to, as things have gotten better, it has started to trickle back. One of the issues that we have here separately in Monterey County is our population fluctuates with the water. So in terms of the drier that it is, then you have less ag jobs. So when we were major drought years, they weren't planting 3 or 4 crops like a year. So that is something that sort of exists separate from what's going on necessarily with the state in general or housing in general. I've seen huge ups and down trends of our school age population just in terms of like the ability of water and how many crops you're getting in the ground like a year. So that I don't have we're supposed to be having an El Nino year, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be wet. Usually not always. It's really hot today.
Yeah. Thank you. There's no action.
Motion to approve. If there's no more questions.
Yeah. I entertain a motion. Got a motion on the floor. Can I get a second?
Second.
Ms. Lopez?
Aye.
Ms. Ariano?
Aye.
Ms. Turner?
Aye.
Mr. Sandoval?
Aye.
Mr. Patel?
Aye, Captain.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right. On to 11.1, approval of MOU between SRUSD and CSEH for revision of job description for behavioral aid.
Thank you. In our most recent approval of 3 additional behavior aides, they are going to be servicing students who are not currently identified as special education with IEPs. However, our job description for that classification had some special education specific a title and duties. And so in speaking with CSEA, we were in agreement to adjust that so that the job description would work for both special ed aides or behavior aides and gen ed behavior aides.
Any comments? I'd entertain a motion, please.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion on the floor. Second, please.
I second.
Ms. Lopez?
Aye.
Ms. Ariano?
Aye.
Ms. Turner?
Aye.
Mr. Sandoval?
Aye.
Mr. Patel?
Aye, Captain.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right. The next item I'm pleasantly happy with. 11.2, approval of new certificated substitute pay rates effective December 1st, 2023.
So per our previous discussions, we have proposed the increased rate from 200 per day to 225 per day for our certificated substitutes, and for the long-term rate increase from 275 per day beginning on day 11 to beginning on day 1 of the assignment.
Just a few comments. I'm very appreciative of this. I want to thank the board for your support. as a teacher, and when you do, I know, you see firsthand what happens when you don't have enough staff members, especially for a classroom, and especially long term. So the way this contract has been amended, the pay rate, I appreciate to increase the daily rate from 200 to 225, which is a nominal increase. But I really appreciate the long-term increase. When you need a long-term teacher, knowing that from day one, they will get that increased pay. I hope that that'll convince more substitute teachers to take these jobs over in our district. So with that, I'm very supportive of these changes. I would like to entertain any comments from fellow board members.
No, it's a good thing that you brought it forward too.
Yeah, and if we can just make sure to publicize it to everybody on our sub list, on the Monterey County sub list, I would appreciate it. And I make a motion to approve.
All right. First, can I get a second, please?
Second.
Ms. Lopez?
Aye.
Ms. Ariano?
Aye.
Ms. Turner?
Aye.
Mr. Sandoval?
Aye.
Mr. Patel?
Aye, Captain.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, the next item is just informational. Sorry, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Sorry.
No, that's a very loose term. Very loose term. Just a man at the mic right now. Just a man at the mic. All right, 11.3, information item, annual disclosure of compliance relating to workers' compensation. We have the great Becky Moore.
Thank you. Apparently I'm ready to share this information.
Yes, ma'am.
Each year we are required to share the annual disclosure of our net position with our workers' comp fund within MIRMA as our joint power agency. So we are in full compliance with the workers' compensation portion of the Ed Code.
And it's just information.
This information item. Yeah. Any comments? Fellow board members? No? All right. Let's keep moving forward to 11.4, approval of position control for maintenance. Oh, I'm sorry, the closure of the position.
Yes. So each year, actually each budgetary period, our business department and HR review our position control. We have several positions that have been vacant for some time that we don't anticipate any immediate need to fill. And so best practice is to clear those from the books, and should we need them in the future, to bring them back for your approval. So there are 4 positions for elementary teacher and 1 position for STC preschool teacher that we would request to move off the books at this time.
I'll entertain a motion unless there's a comment.
I make a motion.
I have a first. Can I get a second, please?
I second.
Ms. Lopez?
Aye.
Ms. Ariano?
Aye.
Ms. Turner?
Aye.
Mr. Sandoval?
Aye.
Mr. Patel?
Aye, Captain.
Motion passes 5-0.
Next up is student services. First item, 12.1, approval of ever-driven transportation contract.
Perfect. So I actually gave a handout in your bundle of paperwork. So it's a front and back. I tried to save a little bit of trees. But it gives a really good overview about this company. So what I'll say is it's similar to Uber, right? Lots of us have used Uber or Lyft, but it's geared for districts and student transportation. So it's a contract. The company is ever-driven. Really an alternative to better support us if we get into a position with our transportation where we have one student outside the district that needs transportation in, or we have a student that all of a sudden is placed at a non-public school and we need support with transportation, which we're obligated to provide. This would help support those needs. We don't have any students that would potentially be put with ever-driven right now, but we would utilize it if a need arose, right? So we did cap it at 30,000, but just making sure that we do have the resources if we did need it.
So is it in place as needed basis?
Correct. Okay. Yep. And it's under student services and special ed. So we would be utilizing on both sides of the house.
Okay.
Any other comments?
I do. Oh, go ahead, Sarah.
Turner?
Thank you. I'm going to vote for this. I'm just, if it comes up, I'd like to have more notification that we've put this into play.
Okay. Sounds good.
That sounds very reasonable. Mm-hmm.
I actually just have some questions, concerns you might say. So I think it's awesome because I know especially we are having all of these everywhere, a lot of districts, bus driver shortage, all of these kind of stuff. I know like we had our vans, finally we got like all of that going on. Safety, of course, this is, something that I'm sure they have, checking and all of that. But what do you guys know of this? Because as a parent, I am going to be telling you honestly that I would be reluctant to know who is taking my child and my child's getting safe to that school site and whatnot.
Absolutely.
So that I think is something that's very important for us to kind of elaborate on. Any parents, if we are seeing tonight, for them to know what this consists of.
I asked the same questions as a parent and educator. So I did a little bit of digging. They're national. So there's many districts across both California and nationally that utilize this service. One thing is that they really vet their drivers. They go through extensive training, certifications. They meet with parents before the ride is given. And then there's a tracking. So there's like an online tracking component. So parents can see exactly where the vehicle is when the student was dropped off. Something I researched in the past, right, is Uber, and that students aren't able to use those, Lyft, Uber. This company is geared for students for that reason, right? They put a lot of those safety measures in place.
That's something. An example of years ago, we used a company called Zoom Student Transportation. Is very similar, but they eventually went out of business, particularly with COVID. This is very similar to that. And when we were kind of going through the process, talking to some of our neighboring districts who already have this in place and finding out about like the tracking app and those pieces, which were a nice new feature. An example of an instance where this might be used. So it's not that we don't have a bus driver or something. We've had families that were displaced from their home and they had to go and be in a shelter that is outside of our district. And we needed to get the student in that short time frame that they were placed there back and forth. And it was outside of any of our drivers' range. But with a service like this, we could have provided easily transportation from the next town over where that emergency shelter was located for that student and get them the day-to-day until they got a more permanent placement.
Okay, thank you for that, ladies. That is very informative. I mean, makes total sense saying, out of the bus drivers and out of, our actual district and our lines of transporting our children. But yeah, safety is a very big thing for, I think, any parent or any individual as teachers, and anybody. So I just wanted to have a little bit more clarity on that. So thank you for that.
It's also a small number of students, right? So I reached out to several sister districts that are already utilizing the company since they've been in Monterey County. And part of it, right, like MPUSD, for example, a district of a little over 10,000, they have 8 students that they're transporting. And it's just like Miss Melissa shared, special cases, right, where students moved outside the district, they're needing support getting the student in, those kind of case by case situations.
Are these drivers fingerprinted?
Yes. Yeah, and they've gone through an extensive FBI background check. I want to say he said like 30 to 40 hours, depending on their level of certification, but that they've gone through extensive training too.
Okay. So what I'm getting from the board is prior to the vote that the assumption is that the board will be notified if we do use this contract, and also the constant monitoring for safety regarding the background transportation. Having said that, I would like to entertain a motion.
I motion to approve.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right.
Okay.
Ms.
Second.
Lopez,
Hi.
Ms. Ariano,
Aye.
Ms. Turner,
Aye.
Mr. Sandoval,
Aye.
Mr. Patel.
Aye, Captain.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, next up, we have administration at 14.1, approval of contract with Jessica Hall Communications.
Thank you. Jessica Hall may be familiar to some of you, and she's helped us out in the past when she was the public information officer for the Monterey County Office of Education. And then she did a small contract to assist with various communications in the last couple of years with us while she was working for a neighboring district. She's in a district in the Bay Area, but she's maintained relationships with districts our size and smaller to offer some of those communication support contracts, PIO kind of services that she's able to help us get in place. This will help kind of get our branding put together. And, you know, we were able to discuss with her like our current goals, where we're at with different processes, the website changeover in those pieces, as well as connecting our social media and part of that branding, making sure that we've got some continuity across how we're posting, being able to connect with our local news station contract that we have for that, and keeping the content fresh and sort of following that vision that we have set. The size of our district, right, is not necessarily like a full position right now, but the work still needs to get going, and she's got a real good portfolio on how to come in and look at where we're at and what we have going for us and make those suggestions for the tweaks and get in there and help build those partnerships for us so we can get our advertising out there and make sure that we're getting ourselves out there in the way that we envision it.
Yeah, and to Sarah's point, I think as far as letting the parents that are potentially leaving understand kind of what's going on. So I know I read it as far as they're going to help bridge everything together, but as far as creating the content, as far as what's going on, how would that kind of work out?
So some examples of those pieces is, you know, that when we have different people who are posting on our social media, we have different writing styles, and that may actually be misaligning our algorithm for how our social media content is like coming up to the top of the feed. And so she immediately saw some just fairly minor tweaks we could be making in that, and it keeps us at the top of the feed where we would want to be for our followers, and as suggestions for new followers, being able to link the with when we create our Instagram account, then we're posting there that it's automatically going to post to our Facebook, and that we're linked to our school sites, and we have that sort of branding, the right hashtags, those things, because apparently you can also overwhelm the algorithm and it'll bump you down because you seem a little spammy. And so there's a balance in how you do that, and like how we're writing our descriptions and things like that, so that there's continuity and our followers and potential followers start recognizing our brand, right? And what we do. And when we're out there doing those advertisements, and then connecting with like our TV ads and our online content ads, as well as like the visuals that we're putting out for the public, making sure that like our vision and our mission are shared with consistency across the board in an easy manner for people to understand, and those pieces. So she was able to very distinctly give us like a vision of those actual components that she can come in and assist us with.
Okay, and I did hear that you're, as far as creating an Instagram account, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, because I think one of the studies that's coming out is the number of new household formations that are happening is a younger population.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of it is through Instagram. So okay. Yeah, and I did hear also in the Friday letter, I know it's kind of part of the subject, is we're getting a revamp on our website.
Yes.
As well. So that's kind of exciting as well.
And Krisha was able to find that new website platform, which will align better with our Parent Square communications. So it'll also have that direct link and be a little bit easier for those of us who might be adjusting content to do, which has been a little challenging in the last couple of years.
To pretty much post something because it's so challenging.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm a little confused. So Ms. Hull will helping us with delivering content.
Yes.
But the creation of the content, the branding itself is where I'm lost here. She won't be doing that, I take it. She will be in the delivering mode of whatever content we have. Who are we getting to create branding?
So actually we've got like our logos are established, our placemat for our strategic plan, our vision and our mission. So it's not really creating the content, creating content more like for our ongoing KSBW contract. So that we're getting
Commercials,
that
5-second
Yeah.
shots, 10-second
So
shots.
they come in and help film those
Who-
things.
who-
KSBW
And
right now.
but who's the creative person behind there in creating the vision of what goes on that 10-second, 15, 30-second spot?
So right now, that's part of our contract that we have with KSBW. When they initially came in and did our presentation and talking about what is the vision, what does the board want to get out to the public? And our initial one was that we are doing our enrollment push. We want our families to know how to do that in those pieces. And then for like our upcoming winter projects, getting them to come in and see those bond projects, refresh the video that's there to have that different content instead of running the same ad. So that's part of that. What Ms. Hull will do in terms of connecting with that contract is making sure that those things are also accessible on our website, on our social media, that we're also sharing across the platforms that we are sort of the owners of, if that makes sense. But also making sure that it's not just that our logos are current, which they are, but that we're putting them in the right place, that we're getting them front and center where people go, oh, that is from Santa Rita. I see that. I recognize that as their brand. That we're making sure that we're sharing that across those spaces, that it's when people, their signature line on their email, are we sending a message there with continuity across our communications with the public and all of those small pieces that can overall create sort of a network of that communication and the style that we have so that we're where we want to be with our public and getting new people interested in following us. Making sure that we do have the social media accounts connected. She can kind of go in behind the scenes and say, I see why that's not aligning. Or saying why you're not showing up at the top of people's feeds. And here's how, whenever you guys put your new photos in from the last event that you had and your descriptions, that they've got some alignment in them. So overall, it helps us create our brand.
And I think Mr. Mattel is probably referring to just making sure that we're posting the events.
Well, no, I would agree. Yeah, to a certain extent, obviously, with the newest generation, 80% is not TV commercials, it's delivering through media, TikTok, etc., whatever. My main issue is I didn't feel that KSBW created a radio, a TV spot that was well developed. I really didn't like it. It wasn't polished. I didn't think it rose to the occasion. I'm very competitive. I always look at other districts and how they're presenting their information, and ours just wasn't there. I'm not sure if it was an issue with the creative director, whoever was on the project, whatever it may be. I just didn't feel it. I would like, number one is presentations from Ms. Hull or whoever, whatever she's doing with whatever, so we can see it here at the board meetings, well, what's going on, but also with the commercials as well, the whatever second spots they are, I like to preview them before they're approved, because I'll be honest, I just wasn't satisfied with the KSBW marketing campaign. I really wasn't. But I'm hoping with this, we're moving in a new direction and we can change course and create something even better. So that's my comment. I would like to hear from the other board members.
I know that we had talked about this behind the scenes and whatnot. From what I think we all kind of wanted and to see, yes, I think that's perfect for us to kind of see what's going to go out there to the public in a bigger commercial kind of thing. But like Jacob said right now, who's going to be giving this out, like stuff that our schools are doing, sports, winning championships, board meetings that did, like when we had the from CSBA, when we shadowed our like stuff like that to put us out there what we're doing as a district, because we don't have a lot of that coming in. So I could see where there's not a lot of followers, where there's not a lot of informative information going out, and people are not, seeing us. So that kind of thing, I don't know if you guys are on the same
That's kind of
page with it, but
two aspects, I think.
yeah, of like, who's going to do that? And how are we going to put that across to make it happen? Because right now, there's not a lot of that being put out there from our district to our families.
And so in her contract, she talks about outlining like a number of post goals for the district, right? And making sure that our sites are aligning in that, because we have some sites who are really, really heavy in posting regularly, right? And then we have others that not so much, right? And so making sure that district-wide, we also have some goals in posting. Part of that she'll be able to help us with is some templates for people who aren't, get in there, and here's how you can make sure you're posting, identify the folks who will be doing the posting, whether or not it's, when we go do the district learning walks, if I'm going to be the one who does the posting, but making sure that even if I'm doing it versus Summer or Becky or Krisha, that the way we describe it is similar enough that it doesn't change where it's showing up. So that's part of the language and continuity piece. She did talk about being able to do some regular surveys of what do we want to see, especially with getting that KSBW content freshened, because it hasn't been. And so that's great feedback, Mr. Patel. And like she was talking about, so talk to me about what do you have upcoming? And I said, here are the winter projects that'll be related to the bond. She's like, then we should get out there and get that footage, right? We should get out there and do that. And that can be part of our upcoming, because your community needs to start knowing you're starting to put shovels in the ground about your bond, and making sure that we're staying up to date, which I feel like is what was falling behind with that one. That's what I noticed as well.
Okay. That helps me. I'm glad for you mentioning that. That is helping. She's gonna help us kind of get the district organized a bit as far as setting goals, and then once the structure is provided there, then we can kind of go forward. Yeah, good discussion.
Any more comments? I would love to entertain a motion.
A motion to approve.
I have a first. Can I get a second, please?
I second.
Thank you.
Ms. Lopez?
Aye.
Ms. Ariano?
Aye.
Ms. Turner?
Aye.
Mr. Sandoval?
Aye.
Mr. Patel?
Aye, aye, Captain.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right. Our last presentation of the evening, state of the district report.
Well, a couple years ago, we started doing this quarterly report. And so it happened to fall on Rosa's budget presentation night. So her slides are excluded because you've already seen them. I will be covering some of Victor's content. Krisha will also be assisting with some of Chuck's content, as they are both heavily under the weather today. And then Dr. Prather-Smith is not here with us, but for a very worthy cause, helping organize our Monterey County migrant speech and debate program. And so we said that that's a worthy cause to miss the state of the district, but she did contribute quite a bit of our data, and we'll make sure that you hear about those great things as well. All right, so going into our state of the district, we're going to talk about our various topics, from academic engagement all the way to upcoming facilities projects and everything in between, except Rosa's budget. Right. All right, so we just started our second round of Santa Rita's very new program of Saturday Academy. Summer wanted to make sure that you guys were able to see that the progress report that we had for session one for our students. So for session one, we served 116 students. We had 11 certificated staff, 8 classified staff, and using a growth model approach. And so I have notes here to explain that. Significant growth in this means that they made at least 6 points of growth. And so some in their growth model on their benchmark that they did, some of the younger grades or programmatic pieces may have used the diagnostics in the UFly program for literacy versus programs that use the diagnostic dedicated to Eureka Squared Math versus iReady. So that they made at least 6 points of growth. But many of them are coming to us and were identified for Saturday Academy experience because they were far below grade level. And so while there might still be below grade level, we're seeing growth in a short amount of time when you think about they're just coming in for a part of a Saturday. So it's really impressive the work that our certificated and classified staff were able to do. I mean, they went in, they had their professional work time, created the lessons, made sure that they had a beginning and an ending diagnostic to check that growth, and keeping students engaged, right? Has been really amazing. So for our second session, oh, and let me look here at our parent feedback because that was also a really important piece of data in terms of doing this for the first time on a 1 to 5 rating scale. Overall, we scored a 4.8 with our parents in session one. So extremely positive for how they felt the program was meeting their students' needs. For session two, 98 students enrolled. The little asterisk is there because we also above that are serving some of our migrant education students who just started with us. So when we built the slide, we didn't have our firm number. So we have 19 certificated staff this round, 12 classified. And then we will keep you posted on that student progress and parent feedback. But I did want to let you know that they just went on their field trip to see a play over at Alisal High School. And apparently our students had the best time on the edge of their seats at various moments. And one young lady lost a tooth, but got it before it had an incident and all was well.
Can I also just add one thing about the Saturday Academy? In addition to targeting students who are far below grade level, we are also looking at students who had missed a lot of school, who are truant, so that we can also use this to recoup some of our ADA. All right, district learning walks. This has been fun to get these restarted this year in our district. So we just finished our second round of district learning walks last week. We all got to go and visit school sites, walk with their principals, assistant principals, coaches, and at some schools, some teachers were released to participate with us. Our focus for this round was student engagement and looking at behavioral engagement, cognitive engagement, as well as affective or emotional engagement. And we had some markers that came about from our PD day in November. Our visits revealed very strong behavioral and emotional engagement across the district, which makes sense because we had a huge focus on reteaching how to behave in school that first year back from distance learning. Last year, a huge focus on the emotional engagement. And so we see that teachers are starting to implement some of the instructional strategies we focused on during the PD day last month to get to higher levels of cognitive engagement. But that is the area that we're going to be focusing on for the rest of this year, is the cognitive engagement piece. Students appear happy, respectful to adults and to each other, and on task. So it was really fun to be in the classrooms.
Perfect. So I've shared this a little bit, but we were able to come together, the student study teams, leadership team with administrators, as well as collaborating with our school social workers, counselors, and school psychologists, so our teams with PPS credentials, and develop what we're calling the request for assistance form. So it really is a form that aligns behavior need, academic need, attendance need, and putting it all together so that we're looking at the whole student and kind of connecting what that student's needs are and forming a team that would then review this, coach and support school teams at the different sites. So really excited. We've rolled that out and all the sites have this now on their websites. And we are working on training and rolling it out. The other piece of this, right, is each site would have a tier 1 team that would really be working with each team member that submitted requests for assistance. Just really looking at those intervention supports and provides ongoing progress monitoring. So it's not just fill out the form, right, but really utilizing this as a data point and then continuing to come back. And then I've been working with Krisha on how we can go back into that form and edit it as we move into SST or even a referral for special education. So looking at that connected systems piece.
Okay, so we can go to the next slide and we're going to talk about professional learning opportunities. So on the next slide, we had our professional development day in November. For middle school, JGMS hosted Gavilan View, and they all worked together. And overall, their objective was to focus on collaboration and engagement strategies for the classrooms. Let's see, let me move my slides here. Next slide is for elementary school. And the teachers met across the district by grade level. So Analia Escamilla and I presented the first grade training. It was so much fun at La Jolla. It was such a joy to team up with our principals, our coaches, and to spread out across the district with one specific grade level in the morning to focus on student engagement. So we had put out a survey for the grade levels to let us know which type of engagement strategies they were most interested in learning about. TK Kinder, 4th grade and 5th grade chose opportunities to respond. And 1st grade, 2nd grade, and 3rd grade chose active engagement strategies. And on the next slide, Melanie also, and our BCBA Andrea also led part of our training.
Sure.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So I had the opportunity to lead our school psychologist, our counselors, and our social workers in just a deeper dive into our medical billing and documentation and really looking at how to make statements professionally and really be able to bill back for some of the services we're providing. So it was kind of an ongoing training. I've already done 2 series. So this was a 3rd. And then I had asked Allie Baker, who's an occupational therapist with us within the district, to come in and help and model. So really was a wonderful work session and just continue to grow in that work. And then just like Becky mentioned, our BCBA, our behavior analyst, Andrea Nashe, was able to pull our behavior aides that are hired through the district as well as our paraprofessionals. And we also included our contracted employees that are paras and behavior aides and really look at functions of behavior, behavior response, and just had a really good day kind of diving deeper into some of those trainings she's been providing as well.
Okay, on the next slide, I've shared feedback from our teachers. And so you can see that well over 90%, I think we're at about 96% of our teachers said that the effectiveness of the presentation was either good or exceptional. On the top right slide is their pre-session knowledge of the engagement strategies that were explored that day. And right below it was the post-session knowledge. And so there's a lot of growth there in teachers understanding engagement strategies. And in the bottom left-hand corner, on a scale of 1 to 5, how willing, happy, excited, open are you to utilizing these instructional strategies? And you can see the majority of our teachers are in those areas of 4 and 5. And as I mentioned earlier, when we went out on our learning walks, we were able to see some of those strategies in action. So it was really fun to hear teachers excited about that learning.
I just want to add about the November PD Day, Becky taking on the task of working with our academic coaches for each of the school sites, as well as for special education and student services, to help put those surveys out and then build the content based on what the feedback was from our teachers. I think is partly how she came to those great results. Is maybe it was the breakfast that I ordered, but but doing that, right, and people feeling like they not only gave input, but that is what they received, and then they had time to kind of dive in and do some planning, right, about how they wanted to do that. Really great structured day. I had one job after it started, which was to take photographs of people. And it was really fun because, you know, we have a couple of principals, Mr. Muchnick and Miss Escamilla, who had been academic coaches, who, when we said, you know, numbers wise, we need a couple people to like lean in on this, they were like, absolutely, we'll step in, and helped, you know, we've got some other principals who were like, I'm interested, I'll help with a grade level. And so it was really awesome to see our admin and our academic coaches team up and roll that content out. All right, about the caring classrooms certification. So we now have we have 2 restorative practice leads at each of our sites, and thanks to this visit, we now have all of our leads have had the training, as well as some of our administrators. You'll notice Ms. Kading finally made it down for the trip to get the training, as well as Ms. Baumgardner, and not just like about how to be a restorative practice lead, but those success criteria that they can assist people with as they're building that. And it's really important for, you know, our administrators to also have that exposure to help the restorative practice leads, as well as to facilitate some of that. And so getting our second group down this year and fleshing that out, and the time that they were able to spend with our experts down in San Diego was great. So just a rundown, for the last several years through our LCAP, we have funded the access to 30 hours of paid professional development via like a menu of choice, and partnering with MCOE's menu of opportunities for professional development content. So far, August to November, we've used, or our teachers have used 240 hours, and that's about the dollar amount. And overall, so far, we've had about 45 teachers taking advantage of those hours. Some of the areas of focus are content for the science of reading, special education, our amplified curriculum, behavior supports, social emotional, as well as our new teacher PD that we support with monthly. Some project-based learning, restorative practices, and again, partnering as well with the menu of options that Monterey County Office of Ed shares out with our teachers, and keeping the menu updated and making sure that we've got content to meet like our elective teachers' needs, as well as like our academic areas, so that they have plenty of choice on what they want to identify that they might want some more professional development hours on. But just to kind of give you a check-in on where that status is at.
Melissa, I have a question on that.
Yeah.
Are these available for all across administrative teachers, everybody? And is it something that is if they want to, or is it something that they have to do?
So with our SRTA partners, the time for the new teacher PD, that is built into their contract that they will attend those. That's very important for us, for like the new teachers to our district, that we're able to share out some of the systems, the approaches, part of our culture throughout the year, as well as it gives a good chance to check in. So that one is dictated that you will attend those hours. The other, they are not mandatory, but it's up to 30 hours. There's a pathway also for if people find something outside of the menu to get that pre-approved as well. And then if it's something that seems applicable, we can always add it to the menu. So adjusting that quarterly. And then, so this specific, that 30 hours, that's for our certificated staff, our teachers. We have specific funding to support our classified staff with PD. And so doing things like, now their schedule is different. And so that looks different for classified, but doing things like having Mel's team offer that training for our classified instructional staff during our PD day. They have to opt in to getting paid to come in on a non-student day. And so, but I can say based on the content, the attendance for that was great this year. So being able to align it at those times where our certificated staff are having the PD, the mindset, the feeling about it. I know that in the one that Andrea was doing, I went in and I was really excited to see a couple of our elementary teachers, our PE teachers sitting in on that, because that had to do with like the behavior de-escalation and those things, because that content was like really applicable to their needs. So being able to be flexible as well as bring them in when we're sort of doing those district wide, they have to opt in, but our goal then is to make it so enticing and applicable that they want to opt in for that extra time.
Okay. And also within our tech department, we adopted Pluralsight, which is an online training for our IT staff to help them train in different areas of network support, security, and also working towards certificates if they would like to do that. They're in a lab setting, which is really nice. So they can actually do some hands-on, not within our network for all those integrations. And so they've been taking that up. Gilbert got to finish up his first certification for cabling. All our other ITs went to that last year. So he got to finish that up this summer. And also a lot of training around our district applications, digital curriculum trainings, make sure we have all those pieces on board, like with Clever, all the integrations that we have. So making sure we're all up to speed with what's offered, and then also working to integrate those into our teaching practices as well. And we also went to the site conference just recently, which was really awesome. Lots of other things around AI, cybersecurity, and all the up to speed things. So.
Okay, so for employee wellness, if you can go to the next slide, I have our data from our most recent People Bench survey. This window was September 18th to October 6th. And across the board, we can see a common thread of the areas that our employees are struggling with the most. So those blue dots on the very bottom that really stand out are all maintaining perspective. The black dots are mastering stress, and the orange dots are staying healthy. And so I think we can all understand that a lot of people in today's world are struggling with those things. And so the principals have reviewed this, they've reviewed it with their leadership teams and staffs, and they're setting goals around working on those things together as a staff.
Can you explain how the chart gets read?
Sure. I sorted this. There are multiple ways to sort the data. I sorted this by groupings of the first column is real small. Is NA or all grades. So a lot of people who are supporting multiple grades, that could include all of us. The next one is kindergarten to second grade staff. The next column is 3rd to 5th grade staff, and the last one is 6th to 8th grade staff. But I did find when I sorted it, by gender, by age group, it was the same results.
So that's certificated, admin, classified.
This is all staff.
And this chart on the left side, what is that?
This is the legend.
No, left side?
The numbers.
The numbers.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. Let me 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. That is I think the ranking.
So what I'm saying is, like, for example, the blue dot there that's around there, is that saying how many people?
It's at 61. Let me look at that deeper on the website and email all of you.
Okay.
I think it's a percentage scale, but I'll confirm.
Okay.
So an example in the bubble here, if you could go to the next slide, of one staff's goal is over the next school year, the school staff will enhance their perspective by developing skills in reframing setbacks, maintaining a solution focus, and managing negativity. We aim to achieve a 15% increase in positive self-reflections by the end of the school year. Yeah, so putting it into action. And then this slide shows on the left in the blue, the highest scoring schools. And so on the left side, it's in high order from highest to lowest. And McKinnon is the highest, followed by Central Kitchen, District Office, New Republic, and Gavilan View. On the left side, the ranking switches order. So it's lowest to highest. And so the lowest ranking school was JGMS for overall resilience. MOTF was next. La Jolla followed them, then Santa Rita, and then Gavilan View, which shows you that Gavilan View is really the one smack in the middle. Like if you wanted to put them all in a ranking order, they're neutral. And then it goes down and up from there. And so again, the principals, when they were looking at this, they were all comparing with each other and talking about, well, what are you doing? And what do you think is attributing to this? And I don't know that they necessarily had all the answers, but they were willing to dive in and explore that with their staff and talk about ways they could improve people's skills in dealing with those setbacks and stressful situations.
And when's the next survey?
Our next survey is set for early in the year. I want to say February. Again, I'll double check that.
And what percentage of staff completed the survey?
This time we had a much higher rate of around 70%, I believe. Our first round was pretty low when we did it in the spring last year.
And the great thing is at least conversations are beginning to happen, right? Because they fill it out and so they talk about it.
Yeah.
We were happy that the one school was like, no, you can share the goal that we came up with because they came up with it together, right? Like they did their leadership and then their staff meeting and said, well, do we want to make a goal around it? What can we do? What might that look like? So,
yeah. Okay, we can move to the next slide.
All right, so we've got some information about a lot of topics. So let's just dig right in. We've got an update. We shared this at our meeting last night for the safety data. So currently we have 250 volunteers on deck. We created the column for last year, full year, and then new submissions for this year. So if they were on the list for last year, they're still on for this year. And then so the middle one is new submissions, and then what the total number is. So these also are the parents who've gone through the full process of the fingerprinting and the TB test. There are other volunteers that, as long as they're staying in that supervised role or they're on a field trip where everyone's staying in a group, they don't need to do the fingerprint part of it. And so this is not inclusive of those other parents who are also coming. These are the ones who've gone through the full process. But to give you an idea of how many that we've added, so some folks were like, oh, I had that many last year. Maybe that is why I felt like I was sending people for fingerprints all the time. And so we were able to have that conversation with one of our school secretaries last night. And she was like, got it. And then how many this year? And then what's really nice is the indication that for elementary in particular, and we heard this at our family forums, right? Our parent forum listening circles that we had, is that at middle school, it starts to taper off of parents, coming in and wanting to volunteer. And so we have a goal of what kind of things can we put in place to maybe build that back up, right? One, because middle schoolers are really cool and they may not want their parents there, right? And so what are the opportunities that we're able to put in place? And so as we head into the spring and we want to do our student listening forums again, our parent forums again, that was one of our topics that we wanted to circle back to, are what are some of those opportunities that we feel comfortable for middle school students as well as parents, right? To come in and have volunteer opportunities beyond, a field trip or something. And so again, the total number for this year isn't including the additional number of parents who may be volunteering for a group supervised field trip as well, or a dance or something like that, where everybody's in one place and they don't need the fingerprints, but that's how many we've processed. So this is also from our safety committee meeting. We've done this is our next level of support with our Kimball teams coming out to each of the school sites, the 5 types of drills that we have, as we talked about those. The lockdown barricade drill, evacuation, drop, cover, and hold on, shelter in place, secure campus. And so as our schools have scheduled those, working with our partners, they come out and they're present during the drill. And so they're able to give sort of an overarching view of how was communication, how was movement, if that was what was necessary, what was reaction time like. And then be able to do those after action reports just as an outside viewer and work with our school sites and their leadership team after practicing each of those drills. And so we've had some of our first round as well. And then you'll see that they'll also come out to catch up for some of those in the winter and the spring, to make sure that we're practicing our required drills, but that we're getting feedback on how we're doing with that. So how the radio communications are going all the way to, how reaction time.
Okay, so for our discipline data, we have information in the first column for our total 23-24 year to date. So we were measuring the number of students last year at this time of year who had suspension or expulsion compared to this year. And so when we look at 23-24 versus the previous year, this year we've had 75 students or 75 occurrences of out of school suspension, not 75 students, but 75 occurrences. Some of them are double dippers or more. And then previously last year, that was 54. So we're up by 21 incidents this year. For alternative to suspension, last year at this time, 33 incidents had occurred. I'm sorry, this year 33, last year was 29. And so we've had 4 more. On a high note, last year we had 3 expulsions by this time of year, and this year we have none. I do want to point out that an increase in alternatives to suspension is good. And Summer attributed that yesterday in the safety meeting to having the van, because she can now offer transportation to students who may not have been able to participate last year because their parents worked and they couldn't get to McKinnon. And also to let you know that 62 students are represented in that compared to last year, 59 students. For suicide risk assessments, we did not collect that data in Aries last year, so we don't have the comparative data, but we have had 34 full suicide risk assessments this year and 7 behavioral threat assessments. At a prior meeting, you approved our contract with Thought Exchange. And so as we're getting in and working with those partners to start rolling out how we want to gather some of that additional data across those places, and it will help broaden our access to community feedback. What we find a lot of times is just giving a survey, rank this 1 through 5.
still leaves out the ability for people to share distinct data or personal experiences. And so thought exchange allows us to bridge over into that qualitative data and be able to share that data with the participants who are taking it so that they can kind of see how that's playing out as well. And so we'll start using that in the spring. We have a brand new LCAP template. We've got a mid-year report that's required this year that's new. So we'll be doing that in February. But as we start our feedback cycle for LCAP, particularly building that new template with all the new requirements, it'll be really important to do our thought exchanges, not just with our parents, but with those students and staff as well. But it also will give a space maybe to gather more of that student voice in an anonymous but participatory setting where they're able to see what that looks like as other people are inputting the data and maybe being able to feel open to sharing additional things. But it'll help with like identifying future project priorities, staff needs. You can use it for like your funding priorities and things like that, as well as general climate and safety data. And so it's pretty multifaceted, and it all has to do with how you're structuring it and rolling it out. And so hopefully before our mid-year check-in, we'll be able to share some of what like our LCAP thought exchange, that's our first one that we're planning for. We'll be able to share with you like what that looks like as we're getting ready to roll it out so you can see what we're going to ask our community to engage with.
So this is the status of our McKinney-Vento or homeless students. You can see in 2021, only 15 students in our district were identified as homeless, which we believe is not an accurate representation. The community liaisons were added to our district the following year in 21-22. And so there's a huge increase of 305 students. And currently we have 772 students who are identified as homeless.
And for the public, can you define what is categorized as
and so McKinney-Vento applies to students who are living in shared housing or don't have their own home. We do have families who are living out of shelters or hotels, in some cases, cars. Most commonly, it's in shared household dwellings where they're sharing with multiple families.
Thank you.
Okay. Victor is sorry, but I will share this are some of our updates from our facilities committee. Our upcoming winter projects. I know Rosa touched on a couple of these, but like our shade structures are ready to go in, and doing those projects required some ADA upgrades to restrooms because anytime you open a project, they'll tell you, oh, you need to update that too. We're doing, looking at starting our gutter replacement at our school sites. All 6 have some gutter replacement readiness that they have, but these were identified as the highest need for gutter replacement. Santa Rita, New Republic, McKinnon. Our goal, he's got a couple of different contract services so that hopefully they'll be able to be going on simultaneously. The goal is to get as much of each of those done during the break. Some safety fencing at Santa Rita. Victor mentioned that last time because we've got at our facilities, we've got that retaining wall that's there. And it serves a purpose. There's a neighborhood on the other side of it, but it makes an attractive nuisance for students wanting to climb on that retaining wall, which creates a dangerous situation. Years ago, there had been shrubbery along the border, but at some point that had been removed and no fencing or barrier had been added. And kids are really great at climbing. And so to just eliminate that we're going to put up some safety fencing on that. As well as some other areas right along the front where they're able to get in between some of those fencing. We've got, and this is one of those projects those are 2 that we hadn't identified in the plan, but they came up with safety with our facilities committee, right? as well as we've got some rotted, rusted out decorative fence in the kinder area at New Republic. Not only is it rusted, but it's also placed really high off the ground and children are able to slide under it. And so pulling that out and replacing it with fresh powder coated decorative fencing that is at a better height. And then we've got the installation of some new HVAC controls district-wide, and I'll talk about the grant that's helping to fund that. Adding, doubling our vehicle charging stations over at MOT, and then hopefully getting PG&E really in to start working on that upgraded system we need for the projects at La Jolla. Because it's that older site, we need to add some additional access for our PG&E services and in anticipation of the system needing a little more juice headed that way. You got that one?
Yes, I'm here for Chuck. So for our nutritional services program, we're going to have an administrative review conducted by the CDE. They'll be auditing our program for breakfast, lunch, and possibly our summer meals. And that audit consists of reviews of our menus, meal counts, the financials, and our procedures in that department. The CDE will provide technical assistance that'll help us tune things up. That doesn't necessarily constitute a fiscal finding, so they'll be helpful on that end. They will be visiting 3 sites. We have Bard Blades, Lagunita, and McKinnon Elementary. And the reason for the 2, we have the MCOE Special Ed and Lagunita as part of our meal delivery. So we provide meals for those LEAs, so they'll be at those 2 sites as well as our McKinnon Elementary. The on-site visits will be conducted February, and the review should be finished up by March.
All right, we've got Krisha's got a little input here for some special projects grant funding that we got notice of during a board meeting a couple of meetings ago. And she'll talk about the projects that we had applied for. And then I've got one that Victor and Rosa applied for and got.
Yeah, so we were awarded the COPS SVP grant, which is a $500,000 award with a $125,000 district match. It's a 3-year project grant. And what we're going to be doing with that is a cloud-based security camera monitoring system with our cameras district-wide. It also includes an access control for all of our entries around the district. We'll be looking at vape detection, which would be monitoring of environments within our middle school campuses and the bathrooms, as well as it includes the hardware, contracting services, program licensing that's ongoing for a 3 to 5 year period. And we will have included in that staff trainings for the systems, for the monitoring protocols, anti-bias, all of those types of things for while we're doing that. The cool thing with these is they have the line crossings that we can look at, perimeters, all those things. Right now, we're completing our proof of concept for our system options. We've been looking at some different vendors, having them based out of our GV campus. So that way, because we have the MDF here, so we have that direct connection. We'll be making our selection early 2024 and with a project plan to start late spring.
Exciting.
Oh, you have one more.
And then we also have our other district technology projects that we've been working on for this quarter. We have our E-rate installation. We have completed our outdoor APs, our access points for the outdoor spaces. And we actually just had a site walk for our indoor APs. We'll be installing early January. So that's going to initiate our new network connections for staff, students, and district guests. There is a hands-on component, so we'll actually be asking for your devices so we can get you all connected as well for the board. We are building the new district website with smart sites, as Dr. Alderman mentioned. The new site is planned to be launched at the end of February. We'll have trainings for our staff and our sites for how to update their areas of the website with the components that are needed. And our Google for Education workspace. We've been reviewing. We finished up all the approvals for the applications. I'm going out right now. I'm working with Site to do our data privacy agreements for our current applications. And then we'll start looking at the newer applications that people are asking for onboarding with that. We are continuously auditing and adjusting with our security in the workspace, as well as looking just the full cleanup, really, to remove unneeded pieces, as well as locking down our student emails. Research and development for bus cameras and student tracking. Victor and I have been working on that, talking with some vendors with that onboarding. And we also have a proof of concept for connected classrooms and staff devices. So displays, as Rosa mentioned, we're looking at ViewSonic and some other vendors for a system. You see the board right over here. This is the ViewSonic board. It has a connected computer, as well as a computer that can connect with our current Samsung devices. So we can have district-wide connectivity, site-wide for announcements, emergencies, etc. And our 2-in-1 laptops, which are a nice feature that will help our staff be more mobile around the classroom and not tethered to HDMI cables. There we go.
Right. Rosa and Victor worked on submitting the CalShape grant, and it's for a very specific and upcoming required action. We talked about this at our safety committee yesterday, as well as at facilities. Kind of overarches both. So the state sent out a new requirement that schools need to monitor the oxygen level in classrooms, right? Because we know that like people get sleepy when the oxygen level goes down and those things, and that you have a system in place that actually increases oxygen flow, right? Outdoor air in to increase that when it hits a certain level. Now we luck out in that our thermostats are a fairly newer system. And so Rosa submitted the application, the total grant for $590,000 and a little change, with the matching requirement, Rosa, 37,000. Yep.
Wow.
And so the slight variance in the site allocations have to do with like how many units that they have that need replacing. The activities are the same across each site. So they're all within a range of each other in terms of how it was allocated. And it was just based on the number of, I keep pointing at our thermostat because that's what it's going to go on. And so it's that O2 sensor and trigger that goes into the thermostat. Sarah had brought up a really good point that Victor reached out to our neighboring districts to ask about, as well as had the vendor come in. One of our neighbors had experienced some of their older thermostats not taking the new upgrade effectively and creating some serious heating and cooling issues after that. And so he was able to do the walkthroughs and show what our current products are and get confirmation that our system is new enough that we shouldn't be duplicating that issue experienced by our neighbor. But it was a great personal knowledge thing worth tracking down before we go in and start installing them. So we're going to start working on getting those changed out and going through each one and getting that done. If you go to the next slide, it just shows, our next two slides just shows the sort of breakdown between the different components for each site that are going into that. I think that's it. Is there anything else? Go to the next one. I think that's it. Okay. Trying to do my part for Victor there at the end with the CalShape grants.
All right. Thank you for the presentations. We'll start off with from our left. Cindy, any comments?
Yeah, thank you guys. That was an awesome presentation. Yeah, so these were the exciting grants I was talking about that we got information on yesterday. And then just a little, we'll be having, I know some points were brought up yesterday, but Krisha said, the bus thing, having things that if one of our children gets in the wrong bus and then wait, no, they got into this bus, innovative things that are pretty exciting, that training we had, the world we're living in. It's true. Also, it was brought up yesterday. I want to say it was by a teacher. I actually joined in it via Zoom. I wasn't able to be present, but I was actually introduced, and I know if Summer was here, she would have said the name, but Melissa, maybe you got me. Raptor. There you go. So I don't know if any of our teacher members here that are familiar with that, but I was introduced by a coworker, and I was like, wait, what? Your child's school does what? My school does. So we talked about that, and basically what it is, it's kind of from what I understood, is basically a device, I'm guessing, that you go, they scan the ID, and it kind of comes out like your profile, and there's a picture, and like more of a safety, like who's coming into our campuses, have they been cleared or whatnot. So that was brought up yesterday, and it kind of goes into like with this whole volunteer and wanting to go on field trips and stuff. If we were to get this eventually in our site, I'm sure that would kind of help out with the process of all of that stuff. So that's kind of cool things that I hope we could bring that into our district as well in the near future, but I wasn't sure if any of you, Sarah or Neil, were your districts has that going on, but yeah, definitely something that looks like it's innovative technology that the world we're living in. Yep, definitely.
Thank you, Cindy. Alva, any comments?
Great presentation. I was amazed at what was the funding that we got for 500,000? Was that for the technology? And I'm looking forward. I know it's going to take a couple of years for everything to get in place, but I was amazed. And they did say on the training that we went to that there was so there was a Tech Amazon cybersecurity grant that can also be applied, or you can apply for too, but it looks like we've got enough money there to do that. And then I know grants are very hard to put together. It takes a lot of effort, but that's good that we're going with that. But yeah, no, that's good news.
Thank you, Alva. Sarah?
Just thank you for the presentation.
Jacob? Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about a lot of stuff that's happening. I'm always looking for ways things that transform the way we do things. I think one of the things I looked at was like the survey, because I know a lot of times in the past, COVID was tough for teachers and staff and everything going on. So if we can find different ways of shifting perspectives, I think that's super exciting. A lot of the other stuff. So yeah, thank you, Dr. Alderman, for the direction we're going.
Couple of comments. Number one, I just want to commend our entire admin staff. The leadership from top has been essential in dealing with the most difficult times. I think most any teacher would agree we've ever seen in our lifetime. And I appreciate the honesty and the soberness of the report regarding suspension rates, expulsion rates, But that also coincided with the fact that we have staff who are under a lot of stress. Even that was shown in the data as well. And as well as what are we doing about it? And what I see is interventions. I see Saturday academies. I see volunteering up. I see commitment. I see outgrowth of our SPED program. I see a lot of support for our staff in terms of PDs in various formats. So there's no book, there's no guidance on how to deal with any of this. And, we're in this district has been able to come together and create solutions to help best deal with this as best as we can. So I just want to thank our admin and our staff for coming together. Also regarding the grants, I just want to personally say thank you, and thank you. Every dollar in grant that we get is one less dollar that we have to spend out of our general funds that can be best utilized to ensure we have the best education for our students and making sure that our staff are paid for the services, that the great services that they provide. So thank you for going out and applying to those grants. I encourage you to do as many as you can. You know, it'll protect us, protect our budget, protect our programs in the long run. And, you know, what can I say? You know, I want to thank the board for, you know, and you know, for allowing me to be president for 1 year. I know this is probably not the right time to say it, but thank you very much. And thank you once again to our staff here at Santa Rita. You know, I often think of this as a family. We're not perfect, but there's lots of love and we always work for the right reasons, you know, so thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Woo! Yippee-ki-yay. Yippee-ki-yay. All right. Accordingly, we have our next board meeting is scheduled for January 10th. Are we in agreement with that? Yeah. I heard any agenda items that you would like to see. I would like to entertain Ms. Turner.
I had not necessarily all at the same meeting, but if we could follow up, Centro Binacional was talking about doing an after school program for us and what's happening in regards to that. And then an update on the new Santa Rita bathroom. I knew it was put in and then there were some issues and going forward with that. And then also I knew at curriculum committee, there was reaching out to staff, talking about if people were interested in pursuing a dual language, you know, strand in the district. So all three of those topics I'd like to see revisited at some point. Thank you.
So we don't necessarily have to have it at the next meeting, but you know, we can spread it out if possible. And other, you know, I'm sure the board would appreciate that. Any other items that board members would like to see?
No, just what we had discussed about looking at how we can fund some of those wants on the projects, trying to set up a budget.
Yeah, you know, I would like to restructure that, you know, and take a look and making sure that at least we get some of the wants taken care of as well as all the needs, you know. So I'd like to see a format on that and maybe a report in the near future.
We'll
Is that
make a
okay?
board item, either for our workshop or a regular item. Rosa's looking at doing a presentation on currently how school sites are funded for you and the different
Okay.
sources.
Mhm.
And how that lays out, and then we can look at, you know, district funding as well and how we can put some of that aside.
Perfect. Okay, having said that, before we adjourn, I just wanted to wish everyone a very happy and most importantly, a peaceful winter break. You know, we have a lot of drama around the world, and I think we can all agree, no matter what your background is, that peace is something we can all hope for and work towards, you know. And that's it for me. I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I motion to adjourn.
I second. All right, Ms. Lopez.
Aye.
Ms. Ariano.
Aye.
Ms. Turner.
Aye.
Mr. Sandoval.
Aye.
Mr. Patel.
Aye, aye, Captain.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Thank you.
See you guys.